This desolate landscape may conceal a creature as yet uncatalogued by science. It is much more than 2 meters tall. Its man-like body is entirely covered in fur, and its eyes are said to have an eerie glow. Animal X traveled to northwestern Russia, to the forests near the shores of the Gulf of Finland, and to the city of St. Petersburg in search of the Russian Yeti. Here, from a small office, cryptozoologist Professor Valentin Sapanov researches on what's locally known as the wild man. He believes the hunt is hampered by fear on both sides.
We are afraid of wild men, like we are afraid of dark forest, we are afraid of serpents, we are afraid of scorpions. It is biological afraidness, biological horror of us. And the same situation is true for the wild man, because wild men don't want contacts with us. He afraid of us, we afraid of him.
The search for proof of the wild man's existence has uncovered much evidence, including large footprints up to 34 centimeters long. In Russia, many of the reported sightings have been by military personnel on exercise in remote forested valleys. But some eyewitnesses claim to have seen the Yeti in more populated areas. Biological samples, including hair and droppings taken during fact-finding expeditions, are analyzed at the Center for Ecological Security in St. Petersburg in the hope of finding conclusive evidence. Sergei Gerasimov, researcher at the center, says, "I'm interested in the wild man. We want to find all the proof and to find witnesses to prove he really exists. Then, we will be able to positively identify the wild man as a separate being, as opposed to being any other animal." The paleontology department at the Gorny Institute in St. Petersburg has evidence of early man-like creatures, which the professor believes may hold clues to the origin of the wild man. It could be a surviving remnant of a primitive form of man, either Neanderthals or Gigantopithecus. But modern physical evidence continues to prove elusive, and sometimes researchers lose vital remains because they don't know what they found. While we were filming, word reached Professor Sapanov of recent wild man sightings in the forests around Lomonosov, a suburb approximately 70 kilometers from St. Petersburg. Animal X went with him. Any expedition in search of the Yeti here is carried out with a degree of trepidation, because besides its formidable stature, locally it's believed to have telepathic powers, and encounters can lead to sickness or death. High in the trees, in the heart of the forest, Professor Sapanov discovers distinctive marks in the bark, which appeared to have been made by a giant claw.
There is a high probability that this tree damage was made by wild men.
At a crossing in the forest, we also stumbled upon a series of giant footprints frozen in the snow. Could these belong to an unknown form of man?
The footprint at the snow, maybe this footprint was made by wild men. So wild men may live in this place.
Some of Professor Sapanov's methods may seem unorthodox. He believes using a divining tool can help show the direction in which the wild man traveled. Sometime later, we meet a local woman who tells Sapanov she has encountered the Yeti. Olga Nikolaevna says its head was about 70 centimeters high and approximately this wide, about the width of her shoulders. Its body was completely covered in thick fur, which was about 15 centimeters long. The fur resembled the color of the trunks of pine trees. The terror she felt was overwhelming. She was terrified of its movements and the strange glow emanating from its eyes. She says she felt her life was in danger. Olga managed to run to safety, and the creature disappeared into the forest. Given its local reputation for causing illness and death, she considers herself lucky. But this encounter, like so many others, throws a little more light on the mystery.
Every voyage, every short expedition is a little step toward understanding of the nature of wild man. And today we made one following step.
The Russian Yeti is not the only creature said to have mesmerizing powers. In Britain, a black dog is making headlines for his uncanny ability to send people into a deep trance. But just how does he do it?
This is no ordinary family dog. For much of his life, he's been amazing crowds across Britain with a talent that sets him apart from other canines. Oscar is believed to be the only dog in the world that can hypnotize people. His eyes can send even skeptics into a deep sleep.
He uses his eyes, his dominant stare, to hypnotize people. And people tend to think that it's weird. I must admit, it's unusual.
Animal X tracked down the hypno-dog, as he's become known, in Luton, in the heart of England, to discover the secrets locked behind his mesmerizing stare. After 21 years in the business, Oscar's owner, Hugh Lennon, is an expert at the centuries-old art of hypnosis, using the power of suggestion to relax the mind. It's a stage act we've all seen before, but will the crowd fall under the spell of a dog?
It's just a gut feeling I have that a dog wouldn't be able to hypnotise me.
Come on, Phil. The dog's got 4 legs, it's like the family pet.
But Oscar is not just another family pet. Thousands of people across Britain have discovered that he may be a regular-looking Labrador Retriever cross, but his talent for hypnotizing people is anything but ordinary. Few stand a chance against his mysterious stare. So what do they remember before sinking into a deep trance?
I remember seeing the dog, actually looking at the dog, and then the next thing I know, that's it, it's gone again.
You just feel like a different sense, a different presence, and then you just tend to like go down, you just go to sleep, you just fall. It just relaxes you, sends you under.
Hugh says Oscar's stare has always set him apart from other dogs, and even as a puppy, he looked at people in a strange way.
I found this farm in Yorkshire, and this is where Oscar was. And I noticed straight away that he was sat there staring.
Oscar has made a name for himself around the world with his special stare. But this type of behavior isn't confined to the stage. Animal experts like Dr. Roger Mugford have come across many wild animals who can hypnotize other creatures with deadly consequences.
There is a natural trait of some animals to stare. We think of, say, a mongoose hypnotizing a snake. They're very good at it. Other predator animals will go and bring their prey into a very vulnerable state by this stare action.
Oscar has never had the chance to test his powers against a snake, but he has been known to use his powerful stare to get a meal. He's said to have hypnotized a man into handing over his lunch.
Oscar's is more of a friendly stare than a threatening stare. If he was threatening, people would not be in the relaxed state that they need to be in before they fall into hypnosis.
Dogs are well known for their bizarre ability to sense things about people just by looking at them. Oscar displayed almost a psychic talent when he growled at a stranger at the door, an unusual reaction for this friendly canine. 2 days later, his owner discovered what Oscar had picked up.
I heard some noise at the back of the house, and it was somebody kicking the door. Therefore, there was no one in. And it was the same lad that came to the door a few days before. He was actually kicking the door. And I can only assume that Oscar picked up something from this lad, and knowing that he was up to no good, you know, the first time he came up here.
Dogs also have an uncanny capacity for identifying people in distress. The medical world, with its access to life-saving drugs and state-of-the-art equipment, find that dogs are often the most effective tool available for lifting the spirits of the sick and calming the nervous. This terrier became famous in America for bringing a young boy out of a coma.
They are so very good at picking out the people who are emotionally aroused, worried, anxious, can't face the future, and putting them at ease and say, hey, you, I love you unconditionally, relax, and I'll do my best for you.
Britain's Hypno-Dog is also reported to have helped celebrities to quit smoking, using his hypnotic stare to convince them to kick the habit. In Oscar's case, seeing truly is believing. While some may scoff at the prospect of a hypnotizing dog, even the most ardent skeptics have been won over after watching him in action. And all it takes is a look into those mesmerizing eyes. Feeling sleepy?
From a friendly four-legged creature to one more frightening, the Thylacine or Tasmanian tiger is reported to have been seen by many people. After the break, Animal X meets those who claim to have encountered this mysterious beast, despite official claims that it became extinct many years ago.
I definitely am sure it was a thylacine.
Welcome back to Animal X. Science is often quick to dismiss sightings of animals that can't easily be explained. The Thylacine or Tasmanian tiger is no exception, but there are many witnesses who swear they've seen it and firmly believe this beast is not extinct.
It's a creature shrouded in mystery. Accepted wisdom has it that the Thylacine or Tasmanian tiger was hunted to extinction in Tasmania in the 1930s. Experts say it's been extinct on the Australian mainland for much longer, 4,000 years. But recently, extraordinary sightings of strange thylacine-like creatures have fueled the mystery. Animal X headed out from Perth in Western Australia to speak to those who claim to have seen the elusive Tasmanian tiger.
It had a real buffy-looking head with a longer snout, and it was very solid looking at him.
I'm quite convinced now that I saw a thylacine.
More than convinced, I know it's there.
I'm sure there were some stripes, and the tail was looking a bit like a, sort of a stick-like tail.
Definitely had stripes on its back.
Barbara Farmer didn't know it at the time, but she may have snapped the best proof yet that the Tasmanian tiger is alive and well and living in Australia.
You don't pull up to take a photo of a fox or a dog. It was something that I'd never seen before, and that's why I took the photo of it.
Athol Douglas is one of those who firmly believes the thylacine is not extinct. After a life's work with the Western Australian Museum, he spends his retirement trying to prove the Tasmanian tiger is still out there.
Hundreds of people have seen it. An awful lot of people have not been able to face up to the possible ridicule if they do report it. Certainly not a dog. The head's right for a thylacine.
Animal X asked him to take a look at Barbara Farmer's picture.
Oh, that's a thylacine. By Christ, it is.
You don't have to convince this woman. Sharon West runs the Mysterious Animal Research Group.
Well, it's genuine for a start. and I truly believe that what she saw was a thylacine.
Sharon West now spends her spare time driving around the bush investigating sightings. Farmer Linda Inglekey was driving along a lonely outback road when she stumbled on a strange-looking animal crossing in front of her. There was only one creature that fitted the description. She says it was a Tasmanian tiger.
I definitely am sure it was a thylacine.
It's dawn at New Norcia, the only operating monastery in Australia. It's the home to a dozen or so Benedictine monks. Head monk Abbot Placid says the thylacine has been sniffing around his monastery for years.
It was a very curious thing to hear that the animal had been sighted in the monastery. But then monasteries have been around for a long time, and a lot of funny things have happened in them over the years.
Tony James has had one of those funny experiences. It was almost 5 a.m. when he was getting ready to leave the monastery for the 2-hour drive to the city.
I walked along the veranda on the northern cloister and turned into what we call the communications room. The room is very well lit at all times. The fluorescent lights are left on right through the night. We both froze, and he looked at me in quite a fearless way, and really I sensed that he was just simply filled with curiosity at the sighting.
The animal turned a tail and ran into the darkness of the pre-dawn cloisters.
Some of the brethren at the time were setting traps to catch the thing, and others were saying, no, if it's a creature of God, it's meant to be free and shouldn't be trapped anyway.
It would have been easy for the monks to trap the thylacine, as it had become accustomed to entering the monastery at night.
The reason we think is that one of the elderly Spanish monks here each afternoon feeds the magpies chicken scraps and meat offcuts and a variety of things.
Father Basil is also a brother at the monastery. He was driving back to the parish when he encountered the mysterious creature.
It wasn't a cat to start with. Can I say that? Because and it wasn't a dog, because the face is different. The face of the animal was quite square, like the front of the animal, the face was quite squarish, okay? And the tail was not a cat's tail or a dog's tail. It was like a kangaroo's tail.
Despite eyewitness accounts, officialdom is sceptical.
I think that a mangy dog with the ribs sticking out in the late afternoon sun could look very much like a thylacine.
We actually caught a mangy fox here on the monastery farm, and I went down just to check that what I'd seen was not something similar to this. There is no comparison whatsoever.
Well, to all the people that think it's a mangy fox, I'd tell them that once they've seen a thylacine, they'd know the difference.
Helen Barliman lives on the edge of a national park. She told Animal X that she believes it's home to at least one family of thylacines, including a puppy.
It was sitting in the middle of the road. I got out the car and it crossed the road. Well, I thought, oh, this is a baby thylacine, because it had all the markings. It was about the size of a fox, or a little bit smaller, but it was still had the buffy head, the long snout, and the stripes on it, and the long tail, the thin, the kangaroo-like tail. If I had a net, I would have thrown it over it, but I didn't have one, so I couldn't do anything about it.
But the scientists are convinced she has it all wrong. They say that this could be one of the last mainland thylacines which died about 4,000 years ago.
It was a little bit darker than the one that I saw in the museum. The colour was a little bit darker, but the lines, or shall I say the stripes, on the animal were easily seen. They were quite prominent.
This video was taken in Queensland. Could this mysterious animal be the Tasmanian tiger? Experts still aren't convinced.
I don't regard sightings as good evidence in a scientific case story. It's like the Loch Ness Monster or UFOs or the Yeti. Sure, there's lots of sightings of people think they've seen things, but if there was a living, breeding population of these creatures alive on the mainland, like in West Australia, there'd be more hard, tangible evidence.
The creature they call the dingo with stripes plays a prominent part in Australian Aboriginal legend. They coexisted for 40,000 years. Legend talks of a fearless pup called Karina, a tiger with dark stripes all the way from its shoulders to the end of its ridged tail. This Tasmanian tiger pup was collected late last century and preserved in ethanol. Scientists say a new generation of thylacines could be cloned from this specimen.
Probably the best chance of cloning an extinct animal that we know of at the moment.
If so, the debate could finally be over.
We can obtain all the information, if we really want to, that's necessary to make a new Tasmanian tiger from the material in this pup.
But until then, or until one is captured, the mystery of this strange creature continues.